Raider Nation, what's going on? Mitchell Renz here, bringing you some breaking news on the Raiders report. The Las Vegas Raiders have made a new move, signing tight end Ian Thomas. In this video, I'm going to break down everything you need to know about Thomas, what this means for Michael Mayer's future, and at the end, I'll tell you the key connection that likely led to this signing. If you're a diehard Raiders fan and want to stay updated with every breaking news, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We drop videos daily, covering everything from trades and free agency to in-depth game analysis. And if you weren't able to catch this news live, don't worry. I'll be going live later today at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, to discuss this move in real time. So, set a reminder, grab a drink, and let's break it all down together. All right, let's dive into the news. The Raiders have officially signed Ian Thomas, a tight end who has spent his entire career with the Carolina Panthers. As of right now, the contract details haven't been released, but if I had to make an educated guess, it's likely a one-year veteran minimum deal. Thomas is 28 years old and was originally drafted back in 2018 in the 4th round. He's been a steady presence on the Panthers roster for the past 7 years, primarily known for his blocking ability rather than his receiving skills. Now, let's be real. This is not the kind of move that's going to make headlines across the NFL. Thomas is not being brought in to be a primary weapon in the passing game. Instead, this is a depth signing, someone who can contribute as a blocking tight end. If you're the Raiders, you're not expecting him to go out there and rack up receptions. His role is going to be helping in the trenches, assisting the offensive line, and providing another option in the run game. That's an area where the Raiders needed help. While Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer are both young and talented, neither one is known as an elite blocker at this stage of their careers. So, bringing in someone like Thomas, who has experience in that role, makes sense. He might not be a game changer, but he's the kind of player who can make an impact in specific situations, goal line sets, heavy formations, and obvious run blocking scenarios. Now, let's talk about what this move means for Michael Mayer. If you've been following the Raiders closely, you know Mayer's situation has been a bit complicated. He was projected as a potential first-round pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, but ended up slipping to the 2nd round, where the Raiders grabbed him. That's a chip on his shoulder right there. Then, this past offseason, the Raiders went out and drafted Brock Bowers in the 1st round. If you're Mayer, you've got to be looking around and thinking, what's the plan here? Do they really see me as part of this team's long-term future? And let's be honest, drafting Bowers was a massive statement. It sent a message that the Raiders see him as their clear-cut T1 moving forward. Then, to add even more to the situation, they signed Harrison Bryant, another tight end who has receiving ability. So, for Mayer, it might feel like the team is signaling that they don't have full confidence in him. That's why there have been a lot of trade rumors swirling around him this offseason. But here's where the Ian Thomas signing comes into play. This move actually suggests that the Raiders want Mayer to be their TE2. Think about it. If they were looking to move on from him, they wouldn't have signed a blocking specialist like Thomas. Instead, they would have brought in another receiving tight end, someone who could compete with Mayer for targets. By adding Thomas, the team is essentially saying, we need someone to fill that blocking role, and we want Mayer to continue developing as a pass catcher. From a team-building perspective, that makes a lot of sense. The Raiders are likely envisioning a tight end duo where Bowers is the primary pass-catching threat. Mayer is a well-rounded TE2 who can contribute in multiple ways, and Thomas serves as a reliable blocking specialist. That kind of setup allows them to have flexibility in their offensive schemes and ensures that they have the right personnel for different game situations. Now, before we wrap up this breakdown, let's talk about the connection that likely led to this signing. Whenever the Raiders make a move like this, one of the first things I look for is whether there's a coaching connection involved. And in this case, there is. Nate Carroll, who is currently the assistant quarterbacks coach for the Raiders, was with the Carolina Panthers last season. He served as their passing game coordinator, which means he would have been familiar with Ian Thomas and his role on that team. It's not uncommon for coaches to bring in players they've worked with before, especially when it comes to depth signings. When you see a move like this, it usually means that someone on the coaching staff vouched for the player, saying, hey, this guy is reliable, he knows his role, and he can help us in certain situations. That's the likely reason behind this signing. Thomas isn't here to shake up the roster. He's here because someone on the staff believes he could be a useful depth piece. And that's been a common theme throughout the Raiders' offseason. Many of their signings have had some kind of coaching connection, whether it's guys who played under Patrick Graham, players who were with Pete Carroll's coaching tree, or guys who simply have relationships with members of the front office. When you put all of this together, it's clear that the Raiders are trying to build a specific type of roster, one with guys who fit their system, understand their roles, and have familiarity with the coaching staff. Ian Thomas might not be a star, but he fits that mold perfectly. He's a blocking tight end. He has experience, and he knows what's expected of him. So, to wrap this up, this move doesn't mean Michael Mayer is on the way out. If anything, it reinforces the idea that the Raiders want him as their TE2. This is about adding depth, improving the blocking game, and bringing in a player with a connection to the coaching staff. It might not be the most exciting move of the offseason, but it's a smart, strategic addition to the roster. That's the latest on Ian Thomas, but I want to hear from you. Do you think this signing will have any impact on Michael Mayer's future? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget, we'll be going live later today to discuss this and all the latest Raiders news. See you then. Now, let's take a deeper dive into the other elements that are shaping up for the Raiders offseason and how these moves could play a bigger role in the team's overall plan. While Ian Thomas's signing certainly adds depth to the tight end group and could solidify the team's blocking presence, the Raiders aren't stopping there. They're working on other key signings and moves, and this is where the bigger picture starts to take shape. One thing that stood out to me when I was looking over the Raiders' moves this offseason is the constant thread of coaching connections. From the way the team has been assembling the roster to the signings, and even their draft strategy, it's clear that they're building something with a cohesive philosophy. Every move has been made with a purpose, and when you start connecting the dots, it becomes apparent that the Raiders are shaping a roster that is meant to function seamlessly within their system. Take the addition of Christian Ellis, for example. This is another signing that speaks volumes about what the Raiders are trying to do. Just a few minutes before we started this segment, the details came out on Ellis' contract with the New England Patriots. He signed a 2-year deal worth $13.5 million. Originally, it was reported that the Raiders had offered him $4.8 million for the first year, but after the Patriots matched that offer, it tells us a lot about how the Raiders value Ellis. They were clearly ready to commit to him as a starting interior linebacker. It also speaks to what the Patriots thought of him since they went ahead and matched the offer, bringing him on board to their defense. Now, what does that tell us about the Raiders' linebacker situation? Well, the first thing it tells us is that they're actively looking for a starter at that position. This is a team that already has a pretty solid defense, but the linebacker group remains one of the spots that still needs an upgrade. Landon Roberts, who's been a solid addition, offers that physical, thumping style of play, but beyond him, the rest of the linebacker depth is a bit uncertain. You've got guys like Amari Burney, Tommy Eichenberg, and a few others, but there's a lot of question marks. Given that the Raiders typically run a 2-linebacker set, the need for another solid starter is evident. Maybe they'll look to address this through the draft, as I'd expect them to keep their eyes on potential linebacker prospects coming out of college. But this deal with Christian Ellis shows they're also willing to spend big if they believe a player can step in and contribute immediately. This is about more than just depth. It's about finding that next piece to elevate the defense. So, while the tight end signing of Ian Thomas might seem like a small move in the grand scheme of things, it fits within the broader strategy. The Raiders are working to create depth across the roster. They're not just focusing on their stars. They're building a complete team with competent backups at every position, especially as the competition gets tougher in the AFC. In a division as challenging as the AFC West, depth is crucial, and the Raiders are addressing it in a calculated way. The key to understanding these moves is recognizing that they're all interwoven with the team's overall philosophy. And that brings us back to the coaching staff. It's not just about the players, it's about the system they're being placed in. Take Nate Carroll, for example. We've already discussed his connection to Ian Thomas through his time with the Carolina Panthers, but let's look at the bigger picture with Carroll. He's been working closely with the Raiders quarterbacks and is now the assistant QB coach. But before his time with the Raiders, Carroll spent time with the Panthers, where he coached a number of key players. This connection with the coaching staff is crucial, especially when you're signing depth players. A player like Ian Thomas may not light up the stat sheet, but his familiarity with Carroll and the system gives him an edge. Coaches are more likely to trust players they've worked with before, and that trust translates into more opportunities. This move doesn't just benefit the team from a tactical standpoint, but it also creates a better environment for everyone in the locker room. When the coaches and players are on the same page, it makes everything more seamless. Speaking of locker room chemistry, that's another aspect of the Raiders' moves that's been interesting to watch. There's been a concerted effort to bring in players who not only fit the on-field needs, but also the cultural aspects of the team. The Raiders have always had a unique identity in the NFL, and that's something that's been carefully nurtured in recent years. They're looking for players who buy into that culture, and whether it's Ian Thomas, Christian Ellis, or any of their other additions, it's clear that this team is about more than just talent. This also plays into the way the Raiders are approaching their roster construction. There's a lot of focus on building a unit that complements each other. For instance, you've got your star players like Maxx Crosby, but they're being surrounded by complementary pieces who can help elevate their performances. That's why a signing like Thomas, even though it's not flashy, is an important part of the equation. He's a guy who can step in and make a difference in specific areas, whether that's blocking for the run game or providing depth when needed. And let's not forget the long-term vision here. The Raiders are not just thinking about next season. They're planning for the future. Bringing in players who have experience and can contribute immediately is important, but so is building depth for the future. That's why you see moves like this happening. The Raiders are thinking about the team they want to build for the next few years, and that involves creating a balanced roster with a mix of established veterans and emerging stars. The impact of this strategy won't be fully realized until the season starts, but you can already see the pieces coming together. As the Raiders continue to build on this foundation, it's clear that they're trying to make smart, calculated decisions that will put them in a good position for long-term success. So, to wrap things up, the signing of Ian Thomas is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. It's a move that fits perfectly within the Raiders' off-season strategy, adding depth, improving the blocking game, and making sure the team is equipped to compete in a loaded AFC West. But beyond that, it's also about coaching connections, team culture, and building a roster that's well-rounded and ready for anything. The Raiders are looking to the future, and every move they make is a step toward that goal. This is a team that's not just adding players. They're adding pieces to a championship puzzle. As always, I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think the Raiders are making the right moves this offseason? And how do you think Ian Thomas will fit into the overall plan? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to join me later for the live stream to talk more about the Raiders and all the latest news. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Las Vegas Raiders. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. In an explosive turn of events, Maxx Crosby, the standout defensive end for the Las Vegas Raiders, has been linked to a shocking 2-year suspension following allegations of doping. Crosby, a force on the field with an impressive 14.5 sacks in the 2023 season and a Pro Bowl appearance, could see his career come to an abrupt halt if the suspension is confirmed. For a player who has become synonymous with elite defensive play, the revelation has sent shockwaves through the NFL community, leaving fans, teammates, and analysts questioning how this will impact both Crosby and the Raiders. Crosby, who was drafted by the Oakland Raiders in the 4th round of the 2019 NFL Draft, quickly rose to prominence with his exceptional performance. In just his 4th season, he became one of the NFL's premier defensive players, recording 7.5 sacks and 17 tackles for loss in 2024, despite battling through an ankle injury. His standout moments, like his 2-sack performances against the Baltimore Ravens and Denver Broncos, earned him repeated accolades, including AFC Defensive Player of the Week honors. But this latest scandal puts everything he's worked for in jeopardy. The potential suspension, still under investigation, is based on a doping violation that could affect Crosby's reputation and the Raiders' defensive strategy. The NFL's strict stance on performance-enhancing drugs has led to heavy consequences for players in the past, and Crosby is no exception. If the suspension is enforced, the Raiders will face a monumental void in their defensive lineup, potentially derailing their ambitions for the upcoming seasons. The doping accusations come at a time when Crosby was pushing through an ankle injury, making his determination to continue playing even more impressive. But now, questions loom over whether the injury was a factor in his alleged decision to turn to performance-enhancing substances. Could this be a case of a player desperate to maintain his top-tier status, or is there more to the story? The truth may only surface as investigations unfold. For Crosby, the road ahead is uncertain. The 2-year suspension, if upheld, would not only disrupt his career, but could also tarnish his legacy as one of the league's brightest stars. As the NFL investigates these doping claims, all eyes will be on the Raiders to see how they respond to this developing crisis and whether Crosby can recover from what may become the most significant challenge of his career. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.